Hello, friends. Welcome to the Media Mogul. And I just wanted to say very quickly I'm on my way to nearly a 200 subscriber mark, which is absolutely fantastic, which means the channel is going to change, unfortunately. A lot of the stuff which is shovelware, when I say shovelware, I mean sloppy material, stuff that I don't think got enough views or stuff that I don't think is appropriate for the channel is going. And I'm thinking this channel is going to be a vlog channel and a music channel, and that's basically where it's going to be. I will showcase my pretend and play businesses. I'll still do my Creative Thoughts podcast, but anything else that I did here on the channel is going to be no more, unfortunately. If I did anything else on here, I'm sorry, it's just going to be no more because it's just not going, viewers are just going to go away if this channel does too much. And I've got a couple of good videos which are coming to the channel. And I've got a few tutorials coming to this channel. And I've still got some pretend and play stuff coming to this channel, so that isn't going away anytime soon. But I thought as well, maybe just doing stuff that I'm, passionate about for this channel. Business stuff is very, very passionate. I'm very, very passionate on the business side. I'm very passionate at telling the stories that I've told, and they're staying on the channel. The stories about my imaginary friends are staying on this channel. In fact, there's a link between here and Beans World 77, and I may do the occasional behind the scenes for a Beans World 77 video, because there are a couple of Beans World 77 videos that I'm working on, which I'd like to show off how I do it. How do I use iMovie? Stuff like that. How do I, as a blind person, how do I navigate these applications? And I'd just like to say that Apple are very accessible in the way they do things. And I think Apple think like cassette recorders, When you bought a cassette recorder, no matter which company you bought it from, you knew it was each cassette recorder had pause, stop, fast forward, rewind, play and record. It was only till a few companies decided to put the record button in certain places and the play button. I know Fisher-Price, here's a little bit of useless information. Fisher-Price, they actually copied the really expensive cassette recorders with the stop and eject button, because they thought that was easy for kids. They thought to have the stop and eject button in the same place. And yeah. And I thought, really, I wish I'd kept my Fisher-Price cassette recorder because it was really good. I preferred the little Tykes cassette recorder that had a louder speaker on it. No one's ever covered the little Tykes cassette recorder, but yeah, they were the things that, the little Tykes cassette recorder had more bass than the Fisher-Price one. But the Fisher-Price one was louder. That's what people tend to forget. And here's the thing: have you noticed? On the on one of the camera that I've got, the VTech Vidizoom Kidizoom twist. have you noticed that on that, the microphone is the same as the Fisher Price cassette recorder? And my thinking is VTech have got the microphones from the Fisher Price products, thought they weren't using them anymore, and put them into their products. And that's why the microphones are sort of semi-good on their products. But anyway, but yeah. And I think VTech could give us a nicer microphone, but they don't. They give us, I think, because it's kids, isn't it? But hey ho. So yeah. Now, another thing that I also wanted to show, because the thing is, I wanted to show people how I use iMovie. And iMovie is a simple tool, not just for the visually impaired, but for OAPs. You know, OAPs like simple. You know, and it's like Boss Jock Junior. Boss Jock Junior is a simple app. I was speaking with the Boss Jock team, and they wanted to have their app where everything's basic. They didn't want to have this here and that there, and once you start going past certain things, it then becomes a bit more difficult and people can't use it. And think podcasters just want something that's like a cassette recorder. They just want to record, put the mic on, finish the recording, and hey ho. And if they want other things, then good, but you still need to have that simplistic. If you're a podcaster, if you're putting a jingle and you just want to touch the jingle. And it's like manual multi-tracking. I've said that. Anyway, I've covered that on the other channel. So, but it's little things like that. Now, Apple stuff, things like GarageBand and stuff like that, you know, it's all simple because they want everybody to use their products. That was Steve Jobs' way of thinking. He wanted people to use their products. And remember, Steve Jobs, he came from the age of the cassette recorder. So Steve Jobs knows that if Apple stays as simplistic as a cassette recorder, then if anybody can use their apps where it's an OAP, where it's a visually impaired, where it's a 5-year-old, that's where Apple sent, and that's why Apple sell well, because their apps are, it's about simplicity, you know, and that's the way everything's going. You know, if you can stop and record and, you know, and editing, once you start bringing other little niggly knacks to your applications, it becomes difficult to worm your way around. Okay, for the professionals, give them something a bit more difficult, because professionals like difficult. You know, but then again, it's a very small market. It's a very niche market you're going for. I do apologise. I am in my pajamas, but I wanted to get this video out there because this is a 190 subscribers special. You know, and I see that as a big number, 190, and this is a channel, right, that has been. I've put the most work into this channel, by the way. I've done a lot of videos, and I did behind the scenes videos, which they might be coming back for the Beans World side of things or whatever. We did progressive weekly vlogs because I was supposed to be moving on. Unfortunately, I'm still on the list for the social services. But you know what? I actually feel sorry for social workers. I really do. I'm watching a documentary at the minute of a guy who was an undercover social worker. And to be honest, the system is screwed over. And I want to do a video about the system and how it works. And social workers are very, it's not a nice job. People say, oh, a nurse is a bad job, a teacher is a bad job. Well, I'd say social worker is the worst, because the stuff they have to deal with day in, day out, and it's not a cushy little job. And the amount of paperwork they get, it's not just sat at a desk, trust me. The mountains and mountains of paperwork they have to get and do. So, I want to also do a video about, I want to do a video that shows, what a emergency accommodation looks like, to give the reality of what that might look like for you. And if I do those videos, they're educational, because I obviously want to tell you the truth of what that might look like for you. Do you know what I mean? I've seen it firsthand, what emergency accommodation looks like. I won't say where, because I don't want to, obviously, I don't want to, I've seen a couple of places, I've met people. Isn't it strange how spirituality, how God sort of tells you these things? And so, you know, and it won't be a cardboard box, but it won't be pretty. And so I want to show that off and interview people, do that in a podcast way, interview the people that work for Light for Life and people like that. Because then, if I'm doing that, here's the thing. If I'm doing something myself and helping other people out in the same way, and people could turn around, because when I move on, people can turn around and say, oh, Stephen, you helped me in that situation. You know, Mr. Media Mogul, you helped me out. When I was 15, I'll tell this story very quick, so I'm going to go. Sorry, no, when I was 19, I had the radio on, and I was going through, I was going through a bit of a time in puberty where I thought having a big will get the girls, right? Yeah? I'm not saying, because there could be some viewers on here that are younger than, what I'm saying, right? And I turned the radio on, and it was a surgery show, and it was Kelly Osbourne and some other girl, anyway. Some guy had basically texted in. And then there was something else that I was worried about. I can't remember what it was offhand. And again, Kelly Osbourne answered, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. I'm listening to a show. And this was before, well, the internet was around, YouTube was around, Facebook was around, but it wasn't as big as it was now. The internet wasn't as big, smartphones could do the stuff, but not like today. And so that was our answer. And I'm thinking, like, YouTubers now, if you can imagine someone in the same position as me, and even if I'm not moving on yet, I still want to make the video, because I want to show people, showcase the reality of it, showcase the truth, showcase I could show off an accommodation, but I don't really want to, because it means going in there. I think what I will do is showcase off a place that's, I will do that with somebody. And if I'm doing it, if I'm showing something off, if I'm explaining something to you, then realize that it is true, it is real, and it is not me imagining it like I would on my other channel. Make it so this is real stuff, and I'm doing it to help you folks out, to know that when you're told this, you can make the decision where you're going to do that or where you're not going to do that, or where you do it and realize then you have to think survival mode, you know, because these places aren't cushy places. They're not the worst of the worst, but they're not the best of the best either. And so you then have to realize, right, this isn't the streets, but it isn't home either. You know, this is what you have to think. And you have to think, right, okay, this is when you have to think, right, I have to keep my guard up here. Because you're living there. So I want to make that video. It's because luckily I've seen what it's like. I've had my eyes opened in a very strange way, and it's amazing how I've been shown, strangely how I've been shown, but you know, and I just want to make that video and I will interview people who, in organizations, will interview people who are in, you know, because I think YouTube is now a place for information, and I'm thinking if I help just 3 people, if I help 10 people, if I help 30 people, because you never know, someone is watching out there, and if they get through a situation, and if they get through the other side and they become something different, not everybody can be helped by, mind you, but for those that can, they don't show that. They don't, but you do see people in the comment section. I've watched videos of people, these documentaries where they have people who are alcoholics or drug addicts or whatever, and I've seen them in the comments and they've said, I was that person, but not anymore. And you just think, wow, that documentary's helped 3, 4, 5, 6 people, or maybe more. And sometimes I believe if you're helping yourself, or if you're doing something yourself, sometimes you have to help other people. Sometimes you have to. And if you're the one that's the voice of the internet, if I've got a tongue in my head and I'm speaking to you now, I think it's my duty, not my job, but it's my duty to say, right, this is what this is like. This is what I've seen. It's not what I know, but it's what I've seen. So I know what I've seen, and I know what that's, you know, or I've spoke to people that it's like. So I can give you a brief picture of it. But then again, I can also interview people who work in that, and obviously they will tell you what to expect and what to not expect. I know the people to interview, and obviously if I do it, and obviously it's for your information, if you know, it's you'll see that information, and it'll be good for me because people can say, oh wow, you know, I had a friend of mine and they were struggling and they wanted to know what this was like, and you sort of helped them. You know, it's amazing. But in that respect, you have to teach the people, you know, you have to I don't know. I think if you've got knowledge, or if you've, we all have to. Everybody needs guidance. That's my philosophy. Everybody needs guidance. Even the wisest people, you know, whether they take it or not is another thing. I mean, you look at people like Elon Musk. He's just a human being. He's making mistakes all the time. You look at people like Steve Jobs. He knew that no matter how much, and he tried. He was one of the most geniuses. He was seen as a genius, and he knew that he could not. He knew that he could not be cured. That's how wise he was. But he tried. Now, I think for you guys, I think for you, for this channel, I think if I can help just a few people, or educate and give my thoughts, on what that would be for somebody, then that sort of, and it also builds up, what do they call it? Some form of portfolio that I have done research into what the good, the bad, and the ugly looks like. I mean, sometimes people don't look at it, because the question that someone will ask is, have you seen it firsthand before you decide to go into it? That's what they will ask. But if I do videos on it, and if I show evidence, I'm going to write a document as well, by the way. And once they've seen that, they can go, wow, you've done your research. Wow, this is amazing. Because when I remember back in the old days when I was looking at colleges, they wanted proof that I'd seen this college to know that I definitely didn't want to go to it. But all I had was people saying that it was bad. I never saw it firsthand to know. It probably would have been a good college, I don't know. People saying the last college I went to was bad. So that's the problem with mainstream colleges. I think all mainstream colleges are bad. It's just people's experiences, It's just getting the thing was they had a good support work team and they had a good care team, so and they were selling that, and that's what they sold it, and they sold that to you, so you went for the place where had a good care team and had a good support team. And I'm glad I went for that. Yeah, I was very lucky, really. I had an angel that carried me through that. But if someone asks you, have you researched it, and how do you know what it's like if you've not seen it firsthand? That's what they ask. Seriously, that's what that's what people ask. And they've a good mind to ask it, because, they would ask, how do you know? Where's your research? Where's all your findings? And that's what I want to show. To say, look, yes, I have seen it. I've looked at it. and no thank you. And I'm also going to do videos why I don't want to go into a care home as well. Don't want to do those videos. There's difference. I've got loads and loads of videos that I want to make that are educational and for me and to build up a portfolio. Because how many people go online these days and look and go, wow, yeah, he's done his research. I'll also have a document there that's, a PDF that people can take away with them. That'll be just for them, but this will be for everybody else. And I know a lot of people in Shared Lives now have done my research because before I even thought about supported living, I did a hell of a lot of research. I've been researching for years, but I didn't use the internet because the internet in the beginning wasn't great for us, and still isn't. It still isn't for people who've got learning disabilities and learning difficulties and autism. I still think the internet is a very narrow lane for certain things you want to know, especially when it comes down to supported living and the problems that we face, which is why the Progressive Weekly Vlogs are called Progressive Weekly Vlogs. And my thoughts are and opinions are as they are, basically. And that's as grey as the area is. And I don't care how many views video will get, but what I do care about is how people engage with it. Because years and years ago, when we were Henshaws, we had a transition book. They closed mine because I wasn't thinking of it. But here's the thing. I've now got a new transition book which I've opened. And now the stuff that I'm looking at and what will they expect us of that? And I'll also share posts of things that I've seen in the news as well on the community tab, so you can go and look at that. If you know, Lifeways is definitely a place, that I wouldn't want to go to for reasons I'll let you do your own digging to, but there has been quite a couple of case studies that people have been neglected within that service. I'll let you do your own research for it, but there is people that are still in the Lifeways service. But they only show a few cases. There's probably more, and probably I don't know, but I'll find the ITV News ones and I'll share them in the community tab so you can go and watch it, and that'll be the start of showing you. And I think this will help people as much as it will whatever it may be. I've also got a CyberClans video to make. I know people keep asking for CyberClans videos, so I'm going to make a few on here. I've got one for the other channel, which is the comments on some of the posts and stuff like that. But I've actually got a great video coming for CyberClans, so do look out for that one. And I want to make a series alone on Don Atkins and that kind of thing, because I feel like that's just kind of people still want to know what's that kind of drama's going, and I'll still do those videos, but I think for those stories they need their own series. Really, it needs its own series. Just because well, I'll do the CyberClan story, and then I'll kind of it'll explain why they need their own series, because and I'll do the whole sort of Indietronic story and where it all left off, because it's quite a big story, really. Also following the bankruptcy and the court case and everything like that. So people want to know about it, and we can talk about it all now, which you couldn't for a long time, but now, well, we can talk about certain things. There's certain things we can't explain, but certain things we can. So anyway, that's it. I'm out. Subscribe, like, and all the rest of it.